Welcome back.
Hello.
We finished episode 689 of Santa Barbara, which originally aired Monday, April 13th, 1987. And on Saturdays, we've been working our way through the Croft Super Show. And we are on Season 2, Episode 16. No, not 16, 6. And the Wonderbug segment, Oil or Nothing, had A. Martinez as the special guest star. So if you'd like to see A. Martinez acting in a very low-budget Saturday morning live-action children's show, this is it. And to sweeten the pot, he's dressed as a harem girl for part of it, in case that changes your mind. It's on Tubi in Canada. Might not be on Tubi in every country, but check it out. Tubi's free.
And of course, the Croft Super Show previously hosted Peter Mark Richmond in a villainous role in the Electra Woman and Dinah Girl series that ran in there the first season.
Yeah, they seem to have a lot of people that kind of look familiar playing thugs on these various episodes. So maybe they're just people who work for the studio. Now, I know season 1 was shot in Atlanta, but Wonderbug takes place on the beach. So I don't know if they've moved that to California. Maybe just the Captain Cool segments are shot in Atlanta. Don't know about season 2.
Yeah, I had a feeling that the second season was shot in California because I think one of their episodes has a special guest who is an athlete with one of the teams based in LA, and they do seem to have a lot of shots that involve studio space.
It's not Waterbug that was on the beach. It's Magic Mungo. That the first 4 episodes took place solely on the beach, and then I guess they slightly branched out in the last 2. But let's see what's happening in Santa Barbara on a Monday. Jane visits Brick and gives him a photo of Johnny. And he says he's trying to figure out who hates him this much because someone stole his boots, committed all the attacks, and then put the boots back in his closet. So he thinks he was specifically targeted. Well, I can think of one past character that hates Brick very much, and that's probably Jerry Cooper, Jack Stanfield Lee's twin cousin, who was last seen dragged to prison in the island city of... I can't remember. So that's it, unless he had some enemies back in the circus. Those are the only 2 things that we could think of if there is someone specifically targeting him. So, maybe there'll be a surprise appearance by some character from the past. He's out there right now, setting me up, says Brick. Well, you can't be set up if you're in jail, so it's probably good that you're safe there. Jane says she feels like she's gotten to know Brick, which sounded like a very nice thing for their relationship, but he says, that's not the real me. So, I don't know where that's going. Maybe he's just in a bad mood. He hasn't mentioned Santana at all recently, since the night he got arrested, and that's the last time we saw her. Ken the bartender, we're talking about Johnny's place, is working at Johnny's when Jane shows up looking for Carolyn. Carolyn talks to Lionel about how successful her fundraising has been. He tries to get to work with him. Let's try that again. He tries to get her to work with him on some fundraising for the museum next. But she says she kind of likes her role at the university. So, I don't know. I thought that would be kind of fun, them working together at the museum. But they've got all these people that they've piled onto the university. Although I guess Dr. Nicholas and Jeffrey now are working at a cosmetics company. So I don't know if we'll be seeing the university lab much anymore. Carolyn decides, as a lot of people have done lately, to go for a walk in the fog. And, of course, every time that happens, I think there's our next victim being set up. Alone. And Pearl says he'll go and look for her when Jane gets worried about how much fog is coming in. Ken has to leave early because it's his girlfriend's birthday today, and Pearl helps him wrap a big gift for her. Jane comes in and is worried that Carolyn's been out in the fog for too long. Well, guess what? The rapist approaches Carolyn, knife in one hand and a pillowcase in the other. Carolyn calls for help, and just as he raises the knife, Pearl arrives, and after a scuffle with Pearl, drops the pillowcase. Pearl sends Carolyn back to Johnny's and thinks, oh, this is perfect. There's boot prints and a pillowcase. This is just what the police will need. But unfortunately, Pearl decides to leave the scene. And when he comes back with a police officer, the pillowcase is gone and the boot prints have been rubbed out. And the police officer just says, yeah, well, I guess he came back. We'll just have to wait for him to strike again.
Yeah, that was really dumb on Pearl's part. I was sort of internally groaning when I saw him get up to leave.
I mean, I feel like I understand why he didn't want to disturb evidence, but I feel like he could have...
Carolyn had already been sent back, right? So she could have alerted them.
That's true. Well, I think he said run before he had really, realized all that stuff was there. So I feel like we may be having another attack. Now, Jane always hangs out at Johnny's, so I think she's a potential victim. And Gina likes to hang out there quite often when she's investigating things, so she's another one who might go for a walk in the fog in the coming days. Plus we've got Kelly and, well, Eden's leaving town, so she should be okay unless...
Oh, she'll be perfectly safe. Up
safe.
alone in that cabin.
Up in Sasquatch Mountains.
Yeah.
Sophia, another potential, Julia. So we still got a lot of people that our attacker can work his way through before he's caught. Hopefully he won't be successful with any of them. But will this be enough to free Brick? Probably not. Julia brings Eden an interim wedding present. Eden goes, oh good, I'll put this in my suitcase. Now I know the last thing that I've ever wanted after spending all day packing my suitcase is someone to show up with a box this big and say, here, just put that in your luggage.
Now, it should be said that luggage was bigger back then. People weren't trying to stuff everything in a carry-on. And certainly Eden would not be avoiding extra charges on her luggage. She may even be flying up there privately, I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Eden shows Julia the book of the Wasatch Mountains, and Julia says it looks great. And then Eden and Julia start chatting about Julia's pregnancy, and she tells Eden the whole story about how she, decided to have a kid on her own and find someone to father her baby with a contract saying they wouldn't have any contact with the child afterwards. And Eden can only wonder, is it someone I know? But Julia does not reveal who the father of her baby is. Eden reveals at some point during the conversation that she is leaving the day after tomorrow. So I think Wednesday will be the big day this week, and this is only Monday. So that's why I'm kind of anxious to race through the Tuesday episode. Cruz asks her if she's going to regret not having her family there at the wedding. And Eden says, do you know how many weddings my family has staged in the last 6 months? And Eden reads to him from the book about all the wildlife they can find. Mason puts $5,000 in a college fund for baby Wainwright. Julia finds out about it and is livid that he thinks she can't afford to provide for her own child. They make up and end up working late, and Mason realizes he's running late again and needs to run to the Lamaze class this time. Julia has already told him, though, because Cruz is going out of town on that conference, that she will be without a Lamaze partner for a while and is not going, which is interesting because someone had actually suggested Pearl to her. Mason suggests that maybe I can be your Lamaze partner and Victoria's. But Julia rightfully thinks that would be weird.
And would not be popular with Victoria.
No, because we've glossed over it a bit, but Victoria is really getting annoyed with how much time Mason is spending. Not just with Julia, but on stuff with Julia and, Mason said, "Oh, you're going shopping today? I got to transfer some money out of our checking account. Why don't you use the credit card?" So if she found out that was for baby Wainwright, I think she'd be annoyed by that too. And then so Victoria says, I don't think Julia's really able to handle the workload there because you're constantly having to help her with stuff. And Mason tries to defend her, and just before they get into an argument about it, the baby kicks, and they have a nice moment. Cruz meets with Carlota Kivar, the press secretary to the governor of Baja, who is the host of this conference that the governor of California is going to, that Cruz will be on the security detail for.
And she is quite flirty.
It turns out she is very interested in Cruz and is the one who made sure he was on the governor's security detail because she's been following his exploits for a while. She is very disappointed when Cruz says he's getting married as soon as the conference is over. But she decides on a last-ditch effort to see if she can maybe start something up with Cruz. She says, well, if this is going to be your last trip as a single man, we'll have to make certain that the experience is something you'll never forget. And then Eden appears behind Cruz. And Cruz introduces Eden and Carlotta. Later, Eden says, looked like an interesting meeting. Cruz says, quite dull. Eden says, is she planning on being with you for your entire trip to Baja? Maybe I should hire you a bodyguard. Piano furnished by Schaefer and Sons. Now, Carlotta Kivar was played by Teresa Saldana, who played Lenora LaMotta in the 1980 film Raging Bull. And in 1982, she was stalked by an obsessed fan of that movie who ended up stabbing her multiple times. And Saldana played herself in the 1984 television film Victims for Victims, the Teresa Saldana story. And then she later went on to play Michael Chiklis' wife in 92 episodes of The Commish, which was filmed right here in Vancouver.
And I believe you mentioned that she actually won an Oscar, or was nominated for an Oscar.
I think I may have read that somewhere, but as I was just checking the Wikipedia, I couldn't see that mentioned, so I didn't say it. But yeah, check out the Oscar website on your own and search for her and see if she won or was nominated for something. So tomorrow, I guess we'll coast. Although maybe our attacker will strike again, and then I guess the craziness will start Wednesday. So I'm looking forward to Wednesday. But for now, we have to get through the Tuesday, April 14th episode. Episode 690. So we'll see you after we watch that.
Bye-bye.
Welcome back.
Hello.
I think I forgot to say last time, welcome to week 142 of Santa Barbara. We have watched episode 690, which originally aired Tuesday, April 14th, 1987. And we haven't seen any Santa Barbara people on shows since the last episode, so we'll move on to what's happened. Carolyn and Pearl talk to Keith, but he says without those footprints or a pillowcase, there's nothing for him to investigate. Lionel and Carolyn have breakfast at Johnny's. Oh, that's a popular place. Ken, the bartender, seems annoyed about something. Carolyn says, I'm glad Alice doesn't work here anymore. I told Jane to come around here, too. So I think, we're all worried about who might be attacked next. And I think we had mentioned Jane and being someone who hangs around there a lot. Carolyn thinks there's more she could have done to make sure that there was evidence. If she hadn't panicked and run so quickly, then they could have proved that Brick was innocent, but Lionel, of course, says that's crazy. Lionel and Carolyn come up to Keith at the bar. He is drinking a glass of milk again. And they complain to him that he's not doing anything, but he says, the only thing that the person on the boardwalk did was lurking, and lurking is not a crime. Lionel says that Keith will be at fault if someone else gets raped. And so now I'm thinking Gina is also a potential victim. So, did the writers put that in as a foreshadowing?
Mm-hmm.
Carolyn shows Lionel where the lurking happened, and then she hears rustling in the bushes, exactly like the rustling that happened earlier. And Lionel leaps in and pulls out a guy hiding in the bushes. And when Keith shows up, he says, "That's the guy I hired to follow you, Carolyn. It's the least I could do since I couldn't really prosecute." So she's very impressed that Lionel risked his life at the drop of a hat for her. I feel like maybe Jane or Gina will be the next potential victim. That seems to make sense because Kelly doesn't seem to be in the orbit of this storyline.
And as we've said, Alice is gone. Lily Light has long left the building. No more Courtney. So.
Yep, that just leaves Sophia and Julia, since Eden's going to be out of town soon. Dr. Alex Nicholas glares at the headline. Capwell takes over Delta Pharmaceuticals. Once again, you're never sure with him whether he's doing this on purpose or whether he's being thwarted by Cece. Dr. Nicholas tries to get Jeffrey to enjoy his work more by suggesting that he might have to hire beautiful models for future campaigns. Jeffrey says, after one of their discussions, "You knew that Cece would buy the company, didn't you?" And then Alex says, "Very soon, you and I are going to form a company. And then we will see Cece's acquisition crumble around his ears." So now I think he has planned it all from the beginning. I do kind of hope Alex thwarts Cece for Pamela's sake. But we'll see how things go and how off the rails his plan might be. I mean, it just seems like maybe he's got a little low-key plan, but with all the secretiveness, maybe he's got something insane planned. So CC tells Alex that he hopes that he does agree to let Delta manufacture the vaccine. So that has not been signed off yet. And he says, "You should, because it's very important we work with each other the way that old friends should." And I really just feel that CC's full of it here. He just did it for the money, really. And he screwed over Alex last time on this deal. And he says, "I want to make sure you get a profit this time compared to last." And Alex says, "Well, that wouldn't be hard." So he must have lost everything. And Alex says, "I think this is going to be a memorable experience for all of us." So
it's foreboding.
So I don't know if he's a low-key villain or a psycho villain in the Kirk Cranston vein. It's hard to tell.
No, I mean, he could even be like a split personality villain or, a villain who hears voices. I mean, there's all kinds of ways he could go.
He could be completely delusional that he's going to put one over on Cece and he's going to get screwed over again. Kelly finishes redecorating her office. She says, not bad for someone just out of art school. I don't know when she went to art school, maybe in Switzerland. Kelly and Jeffrey annoy each other at work, grinding coffee and juicing oranges. I don't know, is this getting old for you? Or
honestly, the whole dynamic between Kelly and Jeffrey was getting pretty old for me, even when they were in the other lab at the university. So, yeah, it's getting pretty old.
I think largely because Jeffrey is making himself so unlikable. Like, if it was someone else, it might work. But he's just so annoying all the time.
And, if I was, as I've said, if I was his manager, we would have already probably had a couple meetings with HR about his attitude, within the first couple days.
They must be keeping him just to humor Dr. Nicholas, I think. I don't know why a thumbs up just appeared on there. We've got some setting. They argue about whether Jeffrey should have stayed home because now he's got a cold, apparently. Mr. Osmond challenges them each to pick an item from the catalog and come up with a sample marketing campaign for it. Jeffrey asks if he can pick an article from the pharmaceutical division, but Mr. Osmond said, nope, I've only got control over cosmetics. Jeffrey comes up with a lipstick campaign that involves him unexpectedly kissing Kelly, which she seems to like, but Mr. Osmond says, good thinking, but it's too similar to a campaign we did last year for one of our perfumes.
And by the way, a good employee would know that.
Well, it's only, day 1.5 for him.
Yeah, but you're
And
supposed to do a little research before you join a company.
Not interested in the cosmetics division.
Maybe he shouldn't be working there then.
Kelly comes up with a campaign that starts with her stripping off all her clothes. That was a fun twist. She'd been wearing this kind of belted, almost like a indoor raincoat the whole episode, and then under that she had a t-shirt, and then under that she had a bikini top. So Mr. Osmond liked her idea better.
Yes, but again, possibly a meeting with HR afterwards about appropriate behavior.
In 1987, did they even have HR?
I mean, certainly the standards would be a little different, but yeah. It was easier to get jobs back then, so.
Cece is upset that Eden has not changed her mind about getting married in Utah without any family members. He mentions that he's waited all his life to walk his daughters down the aisle. His oldest daughter, I guess. Sophia does talk some sense into him, and Eden ends up, and Cece ends up, I guess, giving Eden his blessing, and they say they'll do something afterwards, like a reception. Eden smashes a snow globe that we've never seen before that she and Kelly have played with since they were children, and she thinks it's a bad omen. Well, snow. Cruz's dream was about snow, so I think we're going to have snow in those mountains in Utah.
Yeah, I think you can't have it both ways. You can't be worrying about bad omens and then be actively ignoring every bad omen that gets thrown at you.
Sophia gives Eden her grandmother's wedding dress to wear at the wedding, which Eden seems to love. Hopefully it fits. Cece gives Eden a necklace, and immediately I thought, that's what they'll find in the snow when they're searching for Eden.
I was busy having flashbacks to those bloomers that Kelly was wearing in the ghost town. I don't know what it is on this show about people wearing other people's ancient underwear. But
And to top it off, Eden gets blood on it because she cut herself on the snow globe. So now it's a bloody old dress.
I just don't see anyone. I mean, would you want to wear your grandmother's old nightie?
No. I do have her bathrobe hanging there, by the way. That used to be my grandfather's old bathrobe.
Yeah, I've been trying to keep away from that.
Well, it'll be my last one that I wear. Piano furnished by Schaefer & Sons. I'm looking forward to finishing this podcast so we can start watching episode 691 because we will meet our first new cast member. And I'm excited to see the start of that storyline. So we'll be back in a few seconds. Your time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome back.
Hello.
We finished episode 691 of Santa Barbara, which originally aired Wednesday, April 15th, 1987. Jeffrey is sick in bed. Kelly brings him some soup that Rosa made, promising to return later. When she does return, Jeffrey goes to take a shower, and Kelly decides to tidy his place up a bit and comes across the photo of Pamela with Dr. Nicholas. Now, I don't know why Jeffrey's so defensive about this. The whole family knows that Dr. Nicholas knew Pamela before, she met Cece, so I don't see why he's making it seem more secretive than it is.
Well, I find that, in general, Jeffrey tends to be more negative and more secretive about everything than is really warranted.
He accuses her of snooping. And Kelly says, why can't we be close? And then Jeffrey says, I love you. That's why you've got to stay out of this. And Kelly storms out. She does smirk at one point, though, when he says, "I love you." Eden calls Cruz in Cabo San Lucas to check on the antics of Carlotta Kivar. Carlotta tries to get Cruz to go for a swim with her. Pearl tells Julia and Haley what happened to Carolyn, and that Keith refuses to do anything about it. He feels that Cruz Castillo needs to be the one to investigate. Julia tells him that Cruz is in Cabo San Lucas. So Cruz gets multiple phone calls throughout the day from Pearl, which he does not answer because he's not in his room. So, of course, the obvious thing is that Pearl flies down to Cabo San Lucas to tell Cruz everything and that he must come back immediately. I think he's starting to have enough of Carlotta's antics because he notes that every time there's a camera around, she pushes him towards the governor so he can be seen with his Hispanic bodyguard. And so Carlotta is disappointed when Cruz agrees to leave the conference a day early. But he tells Pearl that he can only spare a couple of days before the wedding. Cruz says, "I'm glad Eden's going to be in Utah, where she'll be safe."
Will she?
At Johnny's, Lucy, who's hanging out with Ted now, is somewhat upset to hear Ted and Haley discussing Haley's attack and these other attacks. Haley in the kitchen picks up a knife and starts having flashbacks. Lucy reveals that the man that raped her was never caught, and Haley thinks that's probably what's been troubling her, the fact that the rapist is still out there.
And this made me wonder if maybe we're dealing with the same rapist.
Yeah, it would be interesting to find out if that could somehow be linked. Julia returns the $5,000 to Mason and tells him to put it into a fund for his own baby. She tells him also that Eden tried to find out who the father of her baby was, but that she did not reveal that it was Mason. Later, Julia drops off some papers for Mason at the house or apartment, and then mentions to Victoria that there's a mandatory seminar for all the staff next Wednesday. Victoria is upset with Mason, since he had promised to take her to Los Angeles on Wednesday. Mason tells her they're going to Los Angeles, and he's going to skip the mandatory seminar. So, two possibilities. Either Mason will get in trouble for missing that seminar, or at the last minute he'll tell Victoria, "Oh, I know you're already in LA, but I can't make it."
That would seem to be more the MO of how Mason is behaving. Although if he did skip the meeting and get into trouble, it would give Julia perhaps a little leg up in the firm, which, we thought she was going to be a partner. Then she was in the basement when Mason got hired, so it might be kind of nice.
There was some discussion about Julia's workload after the baby's born, so she doesn't seem to be too concerned that she's going to have way too much to do to have a full-time job and all this extra work that they're piling on her. Although Mason did say to Victoria he thought that Julia should be able to handle the workload after she's been there a while, because there won't be as many late nights, because she'll be up to speed on things.
Yeah, it could be as a new employee. She's just kind of working through maybe whatever was allowed to fester before she was hired.
Victoria wraps a wedding present for Eden. Mason wants her to sign the card herself. Victoria is wondering why Cruz and Eden didn't get married sooner, because she had thought it was because Eden's holding out for a big splashy wedding, but now she hears it's just going to be in a cabin. While tidying, Victoria finds the deposit slip for the $5,000 that Mason put into the college fund, but she assumes it's for their baby and reveals to Mason how happy she is about it. So he just pretends it is, since Julia had already told him, put it in there for your own baby. But he's going to have to do a bit of transferring to get it.
He should probably take care of that little bit of banking before Victoria learns the truth.
Eden opens their gift, and it is a first edition of the book of poems that Eden likes to read to Cruz. And now, the moment we've all been waiting for. At the Santa Barbara airport, a mysterious woman with brown hair asks the airline clerk which flight Eden Capwell will be on today. It is Flight 661 to Salt Lake City. Ted gives Eden a wedding gift, which is a photo of the family. The mysterious woman watches as Eden arrives at the airport. The mysterious woman hides when Kelly shows up at the airport to give Eden a wedding gift. She has put a charm on a necklace that Eden had given Kelly in the 4th grade when she dated Robbie Wentworth for 3 weeks. I trust we won't be seeing Kelly at Robbie Wentworth's grave in any future episodes.
I feel like this mysterious woman might be the same shadowy figure that we saw sort of peering at Cruz and Eden through the bushes.
I think that is probably true.
I also have a feeling this little charm that Kelly gave her might be something they find, lying blood-stained in the snow or something somewhere along the way when they're looking for Eden.
Yeah, all these little gifts that she's being forced to drag along might end up being strewn around. In Salt Lake City, Eden picks up the phone in her hotel room. The mysterious woman is alerted by a flashing light on a device that she has installed. And when Eden makes her phone call, she listens as Eden reserves a rental car and charters a small plane. At the end of the episode, Eden combs her long blonde hair. The mystery woman combs her long blonde wig.
The level of planning going into this kind of reminded me a little bit of the level of planning we had with Marcello way back in the day. So obviously, to me, this is a fairly sinister figure who's been planning this out for a while and seems to have the resources to really put it all together.
And interesting that there's been no slow build-up to this other than that one shadowy night. It's like something's going on right from day one. Shenanigans are happening. So that's kind of fun to see something that's already ramped up to a 5 in this episode with secret bugging and stuff like that. So.
And I have to say, as someone who has not been particularly enthused about the Bigfoot country storyline, I'm really happy to see it going in this direction because my worst fear was that it was going to become some kind of Deliverance style crazy hillbilly thing. That doesn't seem to be the case. So I'm really happy about that. And this, because it's a woman who seems to be behind it, that makes it just a lot more intriguing and interesting to me.
Mm-hmm. Now, we have a new cast member in the credits. Unknown Woman, played by Sherilyn Walter, who soap fans would have already known in 1987 because since 1983 she had been playing Celia Quartermain on General Hospital. So, I think she was, I didn't watch that show, so I don't know if she was a beloved character or not. Looks like she was on for 3 years, so must have been something. We will see how such an important character could have a name like Unknown Woman in the credits. And alphabetically, she's now between Ali Walker and Robin Wright. So it's the first time the sisters have been split up in the credits by an interloper.
And I suppose this is something, maybe at some point you'll do a little bit of a breakdown of, but there does seem to be a certain amount of affinity between General Hospital and Santa Barbara. Of course, we have Mark McCormick, who went on to do a lot of things with General Hospital. And, of course, our very own Julia is still a long-standing person on General Hospital as well, Nancy Grawn.
We've got 3 day players in the credits. Lucy is played by Sachi Parker, S-A-C-H-I. I guess that's how you'd say it. I don't know if that's short for something. Ken is Randall Brady. I think that's the first time he's actually been in the credits. And Carlotta, once again, played by Teresa Saldana. I figure these might be her only 2 episodes. Now that Cruz is heading back to Santa Barbara to solve the case before jetting off to Utah. He's going to wrap up all these storylines in one day so he can get up to his wedding. Tomorrow is Thursday, so we've recently seen a Doctor Who episode called The Nightmare Begins, which was just recently recovered. And I have a feeling that would be a good title for the episode that we're about to watch. Episode 692 of Santa Barbara. We'll be back after we watch it. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Listen to Derek Browning. Oh, Mason, I used to read these poems to Cruz.
I know.
However, did you find a first edition?
There's a convenience store down on Cabrillo with an extensive literary collection right next to the frozen pizzas.
Keith proposed to Gina, Pearl and Jane hatched a crazy scheme, and Eden died. All on episode 692 of Santa Barbara. Welcome.
Hello.
We've watched episode 692, which originally aired Thursday, April 16th, 1987. And Ted tells Haley about Lucy's recent session being very traumatic to her. He tells Haley that Lucy had tried to kill herself after she had been attacked. And then Haley has a nightmare in this episode of the attacker coming back to her apartment. And she ends up calling Sharon to come over to calm her down, which kind of flusters Ted when he shows up and finds that Sharon had to come to help Haley. Cruz immediately comes up with a plan to trap the rapist, to have a decoy on the pier where the rapist is known to hang out. Pearl says, "Oh, why didn't I think of that?" But Keith refuses to assign anyone to this project, and so does the police captain. So Pearl and Jane get a brilliant idea to do this on their own and trick the rapist into attacking Jane. Brick thinks this is a terrible idea. Cruz thinks this is a terrible idea, and he threatens to put them in jail for obstructing justice if he catches wind of them trying to do this. Jane steals the entire file from Keith's office, and they make a copy for themselves. And she and Pearl read it and decide that the rapist was triggered in several instances because the people he attacked had all had an argument in Johnny's beforehand. So they stage an angry argument in Johnny's in front of what to me looks like basically an empty restaurant, except for maybe Ken the bartender. I feel like they could have hired a few more extras for this scene just to make it believable. Like, why would they go to all this trouble to stage the argument in front of an empty bar? You know, and they even try to paper over it a little bit by saying, yeah, maybe he works nearby here and he somehow caught wind of those fights. I don't know. Haley shows up and keeps trying to break up their argument, which is somewhat troubling to her. But under their breath, they say, no, we're not really arguing. And then when in a quiet moment they fill her in on what's happening, she gets really upset because she doesn't want to think of the thought of Jane getting attacked. Cruz catches them in the act and warns them yet again that they should not be doing this on their own. Pearl and Jane leave, presumably to carry out their plan anyway. But Pearl leaves his jacket behind, and Ken the bartender goes to hang it up and finds the police report in the pocket, and he gets very agitated when he reads it. I feel like the music and the actions in this episode are designed to lead us to think that Ken is the rapist.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Keith teases Gina when she gets flowers from Dr. Nicholas. He keeps taunting her with promises of marriage, and by the end of the episode, he gets down on one knee, but instead of asking her to marry him, he asks her out to lunch, which I think is the last straw for Gina. Because I think in this episode, she basically is making it known that if Keith were to ask Gina to marry him, that she would, and that would be the end of her Dr. Nicholas flirtation, because that's really what she's kind of been angling for the last little while, since her last marriage ended, not unexpectedly. In Utah, the mystery woman listens in to Cruz and Eden's phone conversations. We then see her put on makeup and the blonde wig that she was combing earlier, and she puts on a pink skiing outfit and grabs some skis. We find out that she's in the room right next door to Eden's when she comes out just as the bellhop shows up to get Eden's bags. So she ends up walking right by the door just before Eden opens it. Then later in the episode, we get some location shooting. Eden is driving her car along a road in the snowy mountains, only to find a woman in ski gear flagging her down. It's the mystery woman who tells Eden that her skis broke and asks her for her ride to her car just a mile or two down the road. In the car, Eden starts talking about how her family has a ski cottage in Vale, and the woman seems to sneer a bit at that, but not so that Eden would notice. But then they start talking about where they're from, and Eden says she's from Santa Barbara, and the woman says she grew up in France. And Eden says, oh, I went to school in Paris, and this seems to trigger the woman. She goes, oh, shut up, Eden. And she pulls out a gun and says to Eden, it looks like you're going to miss your wedding. So she knows all about these plans, obviously. And she makes Eden pull over the car, and she knocks Eden unconscious with the butt of the gun. And next time we see the car, the mystery woman is driving, and she pulls over to an area that looks like what she has in mind, and she drags Eden out of the car and pushes her over the cliff. At one point, it looks like, as she's dragging Eden out of the car, like a briefcase or something falls out. But I think she does later throw it back into the car. So I don't know if this is something that Cruz can find at the top of the cliff when he comes searching for Eden.
I have to admit I'm a little disappointed because I was hoping that there would be a much more elaborate kind of scheme involving a hostage taking, and I did not foresee that all of this buildup would be just to toss Eden out of a car.
I have a feeling there may be more to the story.
Oh, I'm sure
at
there
least
is
not
more.
necessarily from Eden's standpoint, because she's.
I just mean there's so much you can do, sort of thinking of all the many horror movies out there, which we don't watch because we're not really horror people, but there's just so much you can do with a deserted cabin.
Yeah, so I feel like there's a fork in this story now, as Eden and the mystery woman part ways, but they will each have ongoing adventures. The woman does not have a French accent.
No.
She seems American. So I had wondered, did she go to school with Eden in Paris? And there's some very strong hatred for Eden because of that. Eden doesn't seem to recognize her, even though she's wearing a wig and glasses. So maybe that's the thing. But she definitely doesn't fill Eden in on anything. She's happy to throw Eden off a cliff and be done with her.
Yeah, there's no sort of villain monologue involved with this. It's all done in a pretty tidy way.
Yeah, so we're not going to find out her motives until, some future episode when she states them out loud to someone, presumably. The other thing, when I thought about, her going to school with Eden, I thought, well, we just met another schoolmate of Eden's a couple of weeks ago, that madam. Wondering if that somehow triggered this. Like, could there be a group of girls who went to school with Eden who hate her for some reason, and this madam girl is part of the group, and they hatched this scheme together to get rid of Eden or something, for something that happened years ago. That said, Eden only said she went to Lyman Prep with that other woman. She didn't, mention going to school in Paris with her. So, it'd be interesting to see exactly what the link is, and did Eden do something in her past that triggered this woman.
Yeah, it is definitely more interesting in that respect than I thought it would be, and I just feel like if it was, sort of that psychological, long-standing feud, there would have been a bit more explanation towards Eden and their little, it's kind of their last chance to show her that she's gotten an edge on Eden or whatever, and so to just toss her out of the car seems like it would not be as psychologically satisfying if
Yeah.
you've been plotting this since high school.
Yeah, it is kind of odd that there was no. She just didn't tell Eden anything,
Yeah.
which she didn't tell us anything either. But it's usually villains like to gloat. But I feel like we've suddenly got a new Kirk Cranston level villain on the show
Yeah, it
after
could
a
be.
bit of a lull. So because Gina's, Gina and Keith are the comedy
Yeah.
level, and then there's the psycho level, which we.
Well,
I
we do
forget
get
if
a
Dylan
Mad
or
Doctor
Kirk
level,
both are.
which we are toying with right now too.
Yes, that's right. Because we have the Mad Doctors that we've had over the years, Renfro and Rawlings. Ramirez was just crooked. A new non-R Doctor, though. We'll see what level Dr. Nicholas is at. But yeah, I think Mystery Woman is definitely at the top of our villains on the show after only 2 episodes.
So it definitely, since she disposed of Eden so quickly and just very ruthlessly, it makes me feel that all of the plotting will be in the aftermath of this. So is she going to impersonate Eden? Is she going to, do something further? Does this involve Cruz at all, or is this entirely Eden focused?
I mean, she could continue to pretend to be Eden in the, in Utah, but she certainly couldn't go back to Santa Barbara
No.
pretending to be Eden, so it would be a very short-term impersonation.
But obviously she doesn't need Eden alive psychologically to torment her or otherwise. So as far as she's concerned, Eden's dead and it's no longer part of the story.
She did. There was a scene where she paid off the pilot by telling him. She had the pilot call Eden to say, I've been called away at something, but I noticed that you're a pilot. Do you mind piloting the plane yourself? And to which Eden had agreed. So that was all set up, but there hasn't been any payoff to that. So the plane rental place is still expecting Eden to show up and pilot it on her own. So perhaps that's where the further impersonation could take place. She's dressed, in a blonde wig. She could say she's Eden and steal that plane, I guess.
Yeah, it's interesting to me as well now that you're mentioning that if she's just getting rid of Eden, which clearly she is, I guess this is effective, but in some ways maybe it would have been even more effective to get her closer to that remote cabin somehow and then toss her off a cliff,
Yeah, and you wonder how much of this could be pre-planned, unless she's got a bug in Cruz and Eden's beach house too, and has had more information to help plan this. But as this was kind of a last-minute trip to Utah, she couldn't really have done too much pre-planning for the Utah area. It must have been a very on the fly thing. Okay, how am I gonna kill Eden in Utah? So anyway, looking forward to seeing more stuff happening. We've got a Friday episode coming up. Not that these two haven't been exciting enough, but maybe there'll be a Friday cliffhanger as well with this storyline. And I fully expect Jane to be in peril and Pearl be stupidly unable to help her, or both in peril, because I think they've ramped things up and Ken is now clearly agitated and will have to take some action before something. His psychological profile says he needs to attack again. Stupidly, if he just did nothing, they would continue to suspect Brick. So, but I think that may be the Friday cliffhanger, and next week we'll see the further adventures of Mystery Woman. So that is it for 692. Excited about Friday and next week. A piano furnished by Schaefer and Sons once again. So we will see some more piano playing in the future. We'll be back after we watch episode 693 of Santa Barbara. We'll see you then.
Bye-bye.
Be mine. Make me the happiest man in Santa Barbara. Say yes.
You asking what I think you're asking?
Yeah.
All I have to do is say yes?
Yeah.
Why not?
Yes. Yes.
Darling, is this lunch at Tippy's Taco Palace? Yes, I'll call and get us a booth.
This is for lunch. They're from Alex. Nothing's too expensive for him. Well, I guess I'll be leaving for lunch early. I hope you don't mind.
No. Maybe take me to Tippy's. Bring me back a taco.
No, he has a finer taste in things.
Yeah, well, how do you fit in then?
Now take a look at this. This is the storyboard I've been working on. Now, we start the spot with this gorgeous blonde in sunglasses, see? You know, California's full of them. And they all look alike, right?
Welcome back.
Hello.
We have finished episode 693 of Santa Barbara, which originally aired Friday, April 17th, 1987. Keith finds Gina on the phone with Dr. Nicholas and suspects something is up. He presses the speaker button on the phone and hears, at the tone, the time will be, and realizes that all the flowers that have been arriving and all the calls and all the notes were all written by Gina. And Gina admits that Dr. Nicholas hasn't returned her calls in over 2 days. Keith gives her a promotion that comes with a raise, and then talks her into having lunch with him at the Orient Express. But while there, they run into Alex, who says, actually only Gina runs into him, and he says, "Oh, I've been inundated with work for the last 2 days. This is the first second I've had to get out, and I'm so happy to run into you. I want to make it up to you by taking you out to lunch." So Gina ends up having 2 lunches with 2 different men at the Orient Express at the same time on either side of that little divider that divides the one table at the bar, in the bar area, and the first table in the main area. And somehow, with all the back and forth, every time she sits, she manages to get another glass of champagne, but always manages to avoid getting her food because it's taken away just as she's ready to take a bite. The waiter does actually catch on at some point and tries to help her, but she ends up pouring sodium bicarbonate on her, even though it was very helpful. So at one point, Alex discovers that Keith is there, and Gina manages to make it seem like, oh, he's just come to ask me to come back to work because of an urgent matter. And I think Alex buys it, but Keith figures out what's gone on and says, all right, the promotion's off and the raise is off unless you can get me in on this deal with Dr. Nicholas. Now, I don't know how, a public figure like an elected DA should be trying to get in on private money-making deals. Maybe that's okay, as long as it's not related to his work. But maybe Dr. Nicholas will say that when Gina asks him to find some room for Keith in this deal. He might say that. Now, of course, she doesn't know that I think the deal is to try and ruin Cece. So Keith, if he does scrounge up some cash somewhere to invest in this deal, may end up losing it if it's Alex's plan to tank everything.
Well, Keith is no stranger to shady deals. I mean, wasn't he cavorting with a criminal named El Blanco or something when we first met him? So I don't think he would be fazed by that.
I think, Alex has already got Cece as his enemy in his sights, and Cece's very powerful and crafty. So I think he needs all his wits about him to suddenly throw Gina and Keith into the mix and have to watch his back with those two as well. Something could go awry by letting them be involved in it. So.
But he doesn't know how shady they both are either, right?
That's true. Cece did warn him a bit about Gina, but I think, wasn't as strenuous as it could be. Maybe he kind of doesn't like Alex, and maybe he doesn't think of Gina as much anymore because he thinks she's out of his life permanently. Let's see what's happening in Utah. Oh, that's right. The mystery woman pushes Eden off the cliff, and she does pick up Eden's purse. It is actually a purse, but it kind of looked like a little leather attaché case, and does throw it back in the car and drives off. So there's no evidence of what happened at that part of the highway. Eden regains consciousness eventually at the bottom of the hill, does see a helicopter and tries to yell for help, but doesn't hear her. And she starts stumbling around in the snow, dazed, for hours. She wanders around the mountainside as the sun reflecting off the snow constantly blinds her. And we see as the episode progresses, she's, rubbing her eyes more and finding it more difficult to see where she's going. So I feel like Eden may develop snow blindness from this day of wandering in the snow. Bigfoot does find the blood from where she first landed at the bottom of the hill, and he luckily is able to track her and starts tracing her steps through the mountain. I guess he's probably got a bit of a lead on her since she's wandering aimlessly and also can't see very well, whereas he is following her tracks, so he should be able to catch up with her. Eventually, too blinded to see, Eden loses her footing and rolls down another huge hill and slams into a tree, and she hits it with her lower back. Now I'm wondering if she'll also be crippled and blind at the same time. And that reminds me of your misery comment a little while back.
So I'm thinking my misery thing might pan out after all.
Bigfoot finally catches up with Eden, sees her lying unconscious, and continues to walk past her and wanders on. Now I suspect Bigfoot, who, by the way, is a man in snowshoes with a rifle, may be going back to his cabin to get a sledge or something to drag her back, because, he's been walking in the heavy snow for a while. He probably doesn't want to carry a woman however far away his cabin is, so just on his shoulders.
Now, one thing I was thinking, it is really, I think, critical that they establish early on that she's dazed, she's blind, she's not thinking straight, because actually when you look at where she ends up, there's a little path, there's a little bridge, like someone who is maybe a little more functional would probably know to follow that and, would know that they're not necessarily completely separate from civilization, but that she doesn't really twig to any of that.
I mean, it could just be the location, but it did seem like the distance she fell from the highway not only was not that great, but also not that steep. I'm not saying it would be easy to climb back up to the highway at that particular point, but maybe, not too far from that point.
Yeah.
There would have been a place to try and clamber up the snow. But then again, the snow could be like just deep drifts, and she could keep sinking into it. Obviously the Bigfoot man has snowshoes on, so it's the right type of footwear to be wearing.
Yeah, but remember too, she's not up at the isolated cabin. I mean, she's probably in the outskirts of Salt Lake City or whatever.
I mean, the mystery woman did drive some distance to find a good spot that presumably she would be isolated. Whether the mystery woman thinks Eden is dead or not, is an interesting question, because just one whack on the back of the head, wouldn't have been enough to kill her, presumably. I mean, it could have, but she could have easily checked if Eden was alive or dead. Ken the bartender watches as Pearl and Jane plot their next steps. They decide that Jane is going to hang around on the pier in an hour and Pearl will be nearby, armed. Jane says she's got some clothes that she used to wear that she might put on. I'm thinking that would be a return of Roxanne. But when Jane leaves, Ken asks Pearl if he can have the rest of the afternoon off, as it's Good Friday, and I promised to take my grandmother to the church. Such a nice boy, says Pearl, and gives him the afternoon off. Now, we then, for the rest of the episode, see this other bartender in the background doesn't have any lines, so there's a backup bartender, which is good, because Pearl spends the episode on the roof of Johnny's with a telescope, just looking around, I guess, trying to spot rapists or potential victims or a good spot where Jane could hang out. But long story short, one of the people in his line of sight calls the police and says, "A man's looking into my window with a telescope," and Pearl is arrested. And he's brought in from the back and then out through the front door. So there's either a staircase to the roof out back or something like that, or another exit with a staircase on the side of the building. As he is dragged away, he goes, "I'm working on a case with Cruz Castillo." So this let me think, okay, Jane's gone, Ken's gone after her, and Pearl is now, the guy who's supposed to rescue Jane, is now in custody. I felt this could go off the rails, and we will see that it does, but not in quite the way we thought. Let's go to the least exciting group, shockingly. Jeffrey suggests to Kelly that they work on their ad campaign to get their minds off Eden not showing up at the airport on time. They decide to work at the beach house. I don't know how Jeffrey knew Kelly would be there. Cruz asks Kelly to watch the phone while he goes to bail out Pearl. Kelly gets the message from headquarters that Eden has called to say she's on her way to the airport. When she gives the message to Cruz, he finds it odd that she called him at the station and not at home, as he had asked. Kelly and Jeffrey go out for Chinese and Italian food. Now, of course, that call was made by the mystery woman from a payphone. And it would make sense to try to avoid speaking directly to Cruz if you're pretending to be Eden. Jane arrives at Pearl's apartment, followed by Ken, who immediately sneaks in the window while she's in the bathroom and hides in the closet. That's the real closet at the front, not the fake closet at the other side that goes into Pearl's second apartment, dropping his key along the way. Cruz arrives with Pearl and tells Pearl and Jane once again that they are under no circumstances to try and catch the rapist on their own. And he does point out that if the rapist catches wind of what they're doing, he will be very upset and potentially kill them. As Ken watches from the closet, Pearl says, "How's he going to find out?" Pearl is really flaky in this episode, and maybe that's his character. Maybe that's the character that they've been trying to present this whole time. But
I guess so. I honestly, he's always been one of my least favorite characters, and I have to say nothing he does this episode endears me to him anymore.
Cruz leaves, and Jane says, "You know what? I'm going to do it anyway." And Pearl tries to talk her out of it, but he says, "I got to get back to Johnny's. I got a lot of dishes to do," which does make sense because he's left it very unstaffed, with letting Ken go and then leaving himself and Brick in jail. And Santana, does she work there? I don't know. She's missing. Alice quit. Gus is gone. It's a wonder that anyone gets food there. On the way out, he spots Ken's key on the ground, picks it up and hands it to Jane, saying, "You leaving keys on the floor of my apartment now?" And leaves. As Jane looks at the key, Ken comes out of the closet, but now wearing his traditional stocking mask, and throws her on the bed. She does try to escape several times, and she manages to hit him on the head with something that smashes, some dishes or something that she manages to grab. And as she gets up off the bed, she grabs the mask and pulls it off to reveal that the rapist is Ken the bartender. He tells her that now that he's seen her face, whatever else happens, he's going to have to kill her. And there was a knife from Johnny's that was in his possession throughout this entire day. So this is coming to a head one way or the other. I can't imagine that Pearl will be coming back unless he recognized that key, because there was a whole thing with a key. Just as Ken was leaving, Pearl said, "Oh, can I get the key to something?" And Ken took it off his chain and gave it to Pearl. And then did Pearl give it back to him at the last second? Maybe that's why it was loose, not on his chain, or loose in his hand with the knife. So if Pearl on his way home or back to Johnny's realizes that key was Ken's, he might realize something's wrong.
I think, however it goes for poor Jane, this has the potential to set Pearl up as a suspect.
Well, that's true, because several times today, with Pearl being on the roof and stuff, he did stuff that could make it seem like he's a suspect. And if Jane, is killed or goes missing, and in his place, he could be the next suspect.
Or is in a coma because she's in his apartment. His fingerprints will be on everything. He'll probably do, or he potentially could do what characters always do in these shows, which they grab the weapon and then his hands are all over the knife. So I could see this, it would exonerate Brick, but it could set up Pearl, especially if Jane is killed or if she's in a coma or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Let's go back to Utah and see what that mysterious woman is doing after stopping at a payphone to call the police station. When she made that call, she said, "Oh yeah, I was delayed by the weather," which is good because actually Callie and Cruz had been thinking, "Oh, maybe she's delayed by weather," and then Callie said, "Oh, she probably just stopped off to eat." When she gets to the charter airline counter, the man says, "Oh, your husband called and asked you to call home." So she has to pretend to call Cruz, but the man has his back turned, so he just says, "Oh, all the circuits are busy. It's fine. I'll call him when I get to wherever it is, the cabin or Salt Lake City." I forget which way she's flying. She's flying to the cabin, I guess. Cruz has a nightmare and calls the charter company, but the man says, "Oh, Miss Capwell did try to call you, but she couldn't get through, and she's just taken off." Flying the airplane. Oh, our mystery woman is a pilot, too. I guess that's why she wasn't too concerned at all about this chartered plane. The woman rigs something up to the controls, and she's got a little blue backpack on, which I'm assuming is a parachute because she leaps out of the plane, and the plane explodes in midair. And now, everyone thinks Eden is dead. And she is stuck in the mountains with a mountain man for potentially months. I can't remember how long this storyline is, but I strongly suspect we will all be tiring of it eventually.
Well, and if it is a misery-adjacent storyline, honestly, I'm already tiring of it, because that's not something I was looking forward to at all.
We haven't even seen the rustic cabin.
No. But what it does tell us is that our mystery woman is very pragmatic, and she, as we mentioned in the last podcast, she didn't go into a big villain monologue. She just basically karate chopped Eden and tossed her over a cliff. No explanation. Didn't waste any time. And with this explosion in midair, she's just went up in the plane, rigged it up and got out.
Mm-hmm. So the fact that, clearly by doing this, she wants people to think Eden is dead and not look for her. It's weird she didn't do more to ensure that Eden doesn't just stumble back up to the road.
Yeah.
So that seems to be the one negative thing in this scheme. But interesting to see what she does next. We had another full cast credits, I think 2 days in a row. Santana's still in the credits. Alice is still in the credits. Gus is still in the credits. Cheryl and Walter is still credited as Unknown Woman, although I'm pretty sure eventually we'll find out her name. And Scott Jack, J-A-E-C-K, Jake, looks German, Jake, is playing a character called Kane. I'm guessing that's the name of our Bigfoot mountain man. And he is in the credits, so he is a permanent cast member as of today. So,
Yay.
Yeah. I'm sure his whole thing won't be Mountain Man. Eventually, he'll do something else, because...
Psychotic.
Unless the show takes place in Utah half the time, he's going to have to come to Santa Barbara eventually and do something. Oh, maybe work at Johnny's as a fish cleaner or something. I remember a little bit about Kane. Mostly didn't care for his whole everything. So that's unfortunate. But I do like Unknown Woman, and I think she'll be the cause of some enjoyable stuff in the future that balances out.
Yeah, well, you said the storyline was branching, and I have to admit that is the branch I am looking forward to a little bit more than...
there's going to be a lot of, let me out of here, and I need to call my husband. Unless she's got amnesia, too. That would be a triple.
False escapes into the snow.
Yeah. And she'll, of course, think he's evil and, has bad intentions, whereas he's just trying to keep her from running into the snow and getting eaten by wolves. for, some period of time. And, of course, no one's looking for her. Piano furnished by Schaefer and Sons. And that is the end of week 142. It's still April. The next episode will be Monday, the 20th. And that will be episode 694. So we'll see you.
We actually may be taking a little sabbatical.
Yes, we're going to try to plow through another 5 episodes before Wednesday. Ooh, that's like 3 days to get through 5.
You were just telling me I couldn't wear my contact lenses tomorrow, so this might be it for a few weeks.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, you're getting your second.
I'm getting my eye surgery in a few days, and probably won't be in any shape for at least a few weeks to do a podcast.
All right. Well, this one is coming out next weekend, and then we should do them every 2 days. So every 2 weeks. So we'll see. We might just be able to squeeze one in at the last second.
Yeah,
but
we'll see what we can do.
If only this was one of the Iran-Contra weeks coming up, and we only had 1 or 2 days to do it. That would have worked out well.
Do a little sprint. We'll see. We'll see what we can do.
If not, then maybe I can finally do Amy's episode of Santa Barbara Cemetery that I haven't gotten around to yet. All right. We will see you hopefully 2 weeks after this is released with week 143. But if not, it'll be 3 weeks, I would think, at the most. All right. We'll see you then.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Do you know how many weddings the Capwells have staged in the last 6 months?
I know, it's bizarre, but it's not a good enough reason to give up your dream.